humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thank you for listening to Hey Human Podcast. On this episode, I have a conversation with Diane, not her real name, and she and I talk about when she lost her husband in March of 2015. He was murdered, and she was a witness to that murder. She was on the phone with him when it happened. And, the year that followed and the year that followed that, it's been a journey for her. And she talks about grief and getting past the grief and her husband's legacy and what it all means and how it feels to get through the world. And, she's got a great outlook and she has a lot of hope and there's a lot of beauty to what we talk about. So again, Diane, we called her husband Jack for the purposes of this conversation. Diane is a huge music lover, and so it seemed appropriate to title them by a song. They had a great love. They still have a great love, and it was really beautiful that she shared her story. So I'm sure a lot of you out there in the world at large have had your own moments of deep grief and are either figuring out now how to climb out of it or maybe in it or maybe seen it as a long ago experience but carry that remembrance. So this is for all of us who have lost someone dear. And I really appreciated the fact that Diane was willing to open up about it all with me and with you guys. Anyway, the usual stuff, heyhumanpodcast.com. I'm on all the social medias under Hey Human Podcast. You can email me, Susan at heyhumanpodcast.com. I'd love to hear from you. And please spread the love, spread the episodes around, tell all your friends and all that good stuff. And go review it on iTunes. That would be most wonderful. It really helps to get the word out. The more reviews and things on the iTunes, the more it gets pushed up in the metrics and all that good computer sciencey, technological, mumbo-jumbo stuff that I know nothing about. Okay, enough of that. Love you guys. Thanks for listening. Episode, I think we're up to 34. Oh my goodness. Hey Human Podcast. Here we go. Hi Diane.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Welcome to Hey Human Podcast.
Thank you.
You are a human. I am a human. And this is what we do.
Right.
Thank you for being on the show. We are about to talk about something pretty intense, I think. And so you and I have known each other a very long time. But we've lost touch over the years here and there, not for anything other than when you are really truly friends with someone, you cannot talk for a couple of years and then talk again and it's like 5 minutes has gone by.
Right.
So you're one of those friends as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
so yeah.
You as well.
Yay. But when you and I had texted, was it over Thanksgiving maybe? I forget.
Yeah. Just before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that it had been a really trying couple of years, and I had no idea what you were talking about. And then you had mentioned that your husband had passed away, and I knew your husband, Jack, and I was like, what the heck? And so I did some Googling, and I was like, oh my God. And so I read the story of it, and that's massively intense. So, anyway, you came to visit Nashville. Here you are in my kitchen.
Yes.
Such as it is. And, you said you were cool with talking about it, so here we are. So why don't you take us back to, so he passed away in March of 2015.
Yeah.
Okay, so take us back to March 2015.
So I was making a phone call to him after work like I always do every single day on my way home, just talking about how our day went and what our dinner plans were, typical stuff.
Typical 9 years, 10 years of...
Yeah, we were married almost 10 years and together about 12.
Yeah.
And about 5 minutes into the conversation, he kind of took the phone a little bit away and was greeting someone who had come in the door at his office, and then I heard some commotion, and I heard some screaming.
Did you know who was at the door?
I did. Yep.
He mentioned it was a family.
It was a family member.
His family, not yours.
Yeah, on his side, and he had said his name, so I knew who it was. And then I heard my husband screaming, and the phone went dead.
Jesus.
And I was driving down the road with I was talking on my Bluetooth. I will say that I was being safe, but I was immediately shaking and didn't know what to do. So I pulled over to the first parking lot that I could pull over to and called 911 and told them that I couldn't figure out what was going on, but that I thought my husband was being attacked or something, and he needed help. So
and he was at his office.
Mm-hmm, yeah, all by himself. Mm-hmm. And so made the call, gave them the address, told them who I thought it was and everything. And then they hang up the phone and you wait.
Jeez.
And I waited and waited and waited for what seemed like forever. I think it was only maybe 20 minutes, but it felt like an eternity.
Totally.
And I actually even called back 911 a couple times because nobody was telling me anything. I wasn't hearing anything, and I didn't know what to do. And I couldn't drive or anything because I was so freaked out. So I finally got a call from a detective who told me that he was on the way to they were rushing him to the hospital, and that I needed to get there right away. So I called my brother to come get me because, again, like I said, I just couldn't drive or anything. It was too traumatic. Yeah. And took my brother about 10 minutes to get there, and just when my brother got to me, I got another call from them telling me that he didn't make it.
Shit. So sorry.
So then began this 48 hours of craziness because... sorry.
No, it's okay. Take your time.
I asked them what had happened, and they said he had been shot several times. Oh. And that the person who did it had run. He was on the run.
And they knew who it was because you knew who it was.
Yep, we knew who it was. And so there began my brother taking me to the police station because they had to interview me. And definitely not anything you can ever imagine.
Do you just leave your body for something like that?
Yes. I have repeatedly told people that I absolutely felt like I was having an entirely out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
Like it was not me. It could not have been me.
Yeah. The you is looking at the person sitting in the chair going, what's happening right now? This isn't real life.
It's very true. That's probably the best way to describe it.
So the police were questioning you about, it seems awful.
It is. But they wanted to just reiterate what had happened and then also see what I knew about the person who did it, which, to be quite honest with you, I didn't know very much. I can't even count on one hand the times I met him, maybe 3 times. And the last time I had seen him was probably 5 years.
Had he threatened Jack before?
I found out after the fact that yes, he had. But nobody ever even imagined or thought, that it was anything to be worried about.
Sure.
And that's a whole other part of it too, that to be quite honest with you, I didn't really research or learn about, even though they told me that, because I just didn't feel like it would help me to know any of that.
Sure.
I knew what happened, and that was all I needed to know. It was enough for me. So,
yeah.
But did the interview in the police station, and then one of my family members came and picked me up, and I stayed with them overnight. Didn't sleep. I actually didn't sleep for about 3 weeks straight.
Yeah.
And then, then comes this whole thing. Like, you don't think about the things that you're going to have to do when something like this happens. So I was being repeatedly called by the detective with questions as they were trying to do their investigation throughout.
And trying to find the killer.
Throughout the night. And
had he run far?
Yes, he ran 2 states away, actually. So they didn't find him. It happened on Thursday evening, and they found him Saturday. Mm-hmm. So not quite 48 hours, but pretty close.
That's impressive they caught him that fast.
Yeah. It's very imperative, those hours, from what I hear, to,
Sure.
to find someone. And thankfully it was a tip that found him, because that's the other thing, when something this traumatic or this major happens, it was all over the news. So I was frantically trying to get a hold of the closest people that I knew right away to tell them what was happening, because I didn't want them to find out on the news.
Yeah.
And it makes you just want to hide, because then you're...
Well, then the news wants to talk to you, probably, which seems incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah, and actually I was told immediately that it would be good to get off any social media and get my husband off social media, which I did. I got all of our accounts closed right away. And believe it or not, they still found my sister. A news station contacted my sister.
Whoa.
And she very politely declined any attempt to talk to them, which I was grateful for. But I had to tell everyone I knew to not post anything, don't talk about it.
Because it's a murder investigation. I mean, it's not... It's always horrible when somebody passes away, but there's this other element to it that changes everything. You can't do the general... people always post, so rest in peace, little Timmy, or whatever it is. And that's a way of grieving, I think, in a social media-driven society. But, yeah, the level of change up for a murder investigation is...
Right.
Yeah. And did you feel unsafe? Were you...
I did.
Yeah. Did you get protection, or did they...
I was basically just told to go somewhere where I felt safe, and if for any reason I didn't, or if I felt like I needed a new place to go, to let them know, But like I said, I didn't really know his family member all that well, and he didn't know me, so he didn't know any of my family or anything like that.
His issue was with Jack.
Yeah. And not me, or...
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, Jack is truly one of the sweetest people I've ever met. I mean, he was one of those folks who, when you meet them, they're kind of cherubic, even though he was large, very tall. But he had that cherubness to him, that sort of sweet, angelic little boy trapped in a giant man's body.
He often was called the gentle giant by people he knew.
Yeah. So, I can't imagine anyone wanting to hurt him. But mental illness and all that, it's just a whole nother level again. So,
yeah. But I had a lot of jumpiness, even the smallest noises.
Like PTSD.
Oh,
did you hear the
time.
gunshots when you were on the phone?
No, I didn't. I mean, I heard commotion, but I didn't know that's what it was.
Well, there's small mercy in that, I suppose.
Yeah. And it's interesting because for me, I think everybody tells me that they were glad that he had his last moments with me.
On the phone with you? Yeah.
But it's also a curse.
Yeah.
That I had those last moments, because I won't ever forget it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad, too, that it happened the way it did, because maybe if I wasn't on the phone with him, we wouldn't have known right away who it was, and then it would have been even more difficult to figure out.
Absolutely.
Who the heck did it.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. Well, God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
Do you... I guess we never really talked about that kind of thing in our friendship over the years, but pre this, did you have a faith in something bigger than yourself?
I would say I am spiritual.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say I'm very religious, but I do believe in a universal life force.
Did that change at all after the event?
I will say that my faith was tested a couple of times. Like, there were days when I was just like, really, he would, like you said, he was a very, very good person.
Jack, yeah.
And I try and be a very, very good person, and you think,
why do you take the good ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. But people, it's like that, people take the good ones.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, at least for me, I had just days where I kind of broke down my walls a little bit on what I believed. But it didn't completely take it away. It's just there's days when you're dealing with it and it's a lot harder, and you think,
how'd you come to terms with it? If you have, you may not have yet.
One of the things, and it's odd to say this, but over our marriage and relationship, there were a couple of times where we would talk about, okay, heaven forbid something happens to one of us. What will we do? And, because you have to talk about that stuff. And we always said, that we didn't want either one of us to go down. We didn't want either one of us to lose faith, to become a distant or negative person.
An empty shell.
Right.
Which I think is a natural response to something so traumatic and tragic.
Mm-hmm. And I just know, and a lot of his friends and family told me, he would not want you to crawl in a hole and disappear, even though there were days I might have wanted to do that.
Yeah. I'm sure you did on some occasions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's in my head and in my heart all the time saying, you're not going down. Okay. Yeah. You can have this day that maybe you're feeling extra cruddy, but you're not going to go down. You're just not on my watch, that kind of thing. So I have faith in that.
Totally. Did you, so a couple days have gone by. Did you get the phone call that they found?
Yeah, they called me actually when they had found him. And, it was, I remember that moment. I was actually in my sister's living room. We were about to have a dinner, and I yelled. I said, "Can I tell everyone?" Because I was talking to the police, and I didn't know what I could say. And they said, "Yeah, you can tell them." I said, "They found him," and everybody was just like...
Were you relieved or more scared at that point?
I don't think that the PTSD really went away right away. I still had fear no matter what, but it was just, I was glad that at least they had him in their possession. And
did he confess right away?
Yeah. He did. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. He couldn't really not. I mean, there was so much evidence proving it. Yeah. Other than himself, that he couldn't have lied about it. So.
Did you go to the trial?
There was no trial.
No trial?
No.
Is that common?
That I don't know, actually.
Maybe because he confessed, it was more of just straight into the sentencing part.
Yeah.
I don't know really how that works.
Well, the way that I understood it was because it was such an overwhelming case against him, that his defense attorney was basically trying to, convince him, hey, you need to go ahead and just plead guilty, and then we can try and get you the least sentence that you can get, which I know sounds crazy, but it went through a many, I don't even know how many, oh my gosh, and I can't remember what the word is now. I feel badly that I can't think of this. But anyway, they have kind of these hearings. And
arraignments?
Yeah, well, there was an arraignment, and then there was all these hearings after that.
Sentencing hearings?
And they kind of go in, and every single time it would get no, okay, we're not ready, or, oh, no, we need to do more research on this, or...
For what?
That's the thing. I mean, they can basically figure out ways to stall things.
But was he in jail during that entire process?
Yep.
But not prison? Because I imagine for murder, you go to prison.
Right. No, so he was in jail for that whole time, which was from March, April of 2015 until June of 2016.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, yeah.
It took that long?
It takes very long. And actually, I was told I was lucky that some of these things can go on for years and years.
And they just sit in jail waiting. Wow. Even with that much overwhelming evidence.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's a very unfair...
You must have a very good defense lawyer.
Yeah. It's a very, very unfair thing, but they have to be so careful, because if they don't let the perpetrator, as it were, speak their mind or go through all the evidence completely cleanly and everything, then things...
You can get off on a technicality.
Exactly. So... as hard as it was for me to keep getting the calls that it was going to be postponed, in the end it was good anyway, because,
What did he get sentenced to?
Well, he got the maximum, which in the particular state we were in, and this is completely crazy for a murder, because it was a first-time murder, it's 26 and a half years.
Wow. How do they come up with that?
I have no clue, but
is that with or without parole?
Without. He will not.
Well, that's something.
And thankfully, he is of an age where I don't think he will live out his sentence anyway.
Yeah.
So,
how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think that the sentence amount is so minimal for what he did. Sure. I feel like it should be 26 billion times 26 and a half years.
Of course.
It should be life for me. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah. But one life for another.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange system. I don't know how they figure it all out.
Right.
So he wasn't, is the state, does it have the death penalty?
No.
No. If it did, do you think he would have wanted that?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a complicated question.
It is. It's very complicated.
Complicated answer, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think about these things. I'm trying to think if I know anybody else who has been murdered, and nobody comes to mind before Jack. So, but I do think about these things, like how I feel about the death penalty and what it all means, and knowing that technically it doesn't work, and it doesn't stop people from doing what they do, and then it ends up costing because they appeal and all that. But I also know there are people on death row that shouldn't be there. They didn't commit the crime. It's obviously there's a strata of issue. But then I think, God, if somebody took somebody from me, would my sense of vengeance rear up? Like a biblical vengeance. It's a very complicated, emotional thing. We've now created a drinking game where every time I say complicated...
Okay, cheers.
I've noticed I'm repeating myself on this one, but yeah, it's... Oh, man. Trying to wrap my head around it all. I cannot imagine how you wrap your head around any of it. Even now, and it's been nearly 2 years... Do you have those moments where you think, oh, I'm just going to see Jack, later today, he's just going to walk through the door, or have you reached that threshold where it's not going to be that?
No, I know. Yeah, no, I know it's not going to be that. Yeah, I mean, I think it was such a final thing that happened that...
That you bore witness to.
That I was a witness to.
That might have made the difference, maybe.
Yeah, and I don't know.
What do you think if Jack could say? What do you think he would say about the person that killed him? What do you think? Do you think he would?
Oh boy, I don't know. I don't think I could.
I always wonder about things like that. Like if you believe in something bigger than yourself, and it's something I think about all the time, and I do believe that. And I pray and I, all that. Again, I'm like you, I'm not religious. I read a lot of religion. I find it fascinating.
Right.
But I'm spiritual and I have a deep respect for the universe and for my fellow man and woman.
Right.
and I think it's all connected, and I think we all come from the source of this ultimate source. I don't know what it is. I can't name it, but I don't think it needs to be named.
Right.
And in all that, if a lot of things I read talk about, what if we've chosen every path every step. Although we get doorways to walk through, and then here we'll walk through this door, and over here we walk through this door, and there's an infinite number of doors. So is there some doorway where in that moment there was an agreement between Jack and the man who took his life? Doesn't make it any easier, but it makes me think deeply into these possibilities. And you had said to me yesterday that you've learned a lot. So what have you learned?
Well, just for the process itself. Obviously, I never imagined being a widow.
It's a big word, widow.
Yeah. It is a big word, actually.
It calls to mind, a little old lady with a stick and a shawl, and Here you are saying before me, young and vibrant and...
Right.
Yeah.
I think the first lesson I had was, and I think we were talking about this last night, when, it was just actually that same Saturday, I went to just 2 days after he passed away, I'd gone to the church that we were going to have his service at, and the pastor talking to me about the events that would happen and how everything would go, and that one of the things he wanted to make sure he pointed out to me was after the service was over and we go into the reception area and there's people wanting to talk to you, that people might say something really stupid or something that is maybe not really quite respectful, but it's not that they're trying to be mean or they're trying to be that way. It's just that they absolutely don't know what to say, and that a lot of people might not even contact you for a while or whatnot, and it's not because they don't want to, it's just because they are scared.
Death is a complicated emotion.
And especially with something like this.
So traumatic.
So I was even though I know in my heart I would be very accommodating to those people anyway, it was just good for him to say that, because I had it in my head, okay, if anybody says anything, it's totally fine, I understand.
Wow, that was good of him to have that conversation with you.
He was great. He was amazing, actually. After we did the initial meeting, I ended up going back to him a couple days later so that we could just talk about Jack and his life and our life together and everything. And he captured it so well in the service. Even people that came, I got messages from them for weeks after saying... Captured
Jack?
Yeah. Just, they couldn't believe how it was like he knew him for all his life. So that was really... great.
How old was Jack when he passed?
42.
So young.
Very young.
Yeah, a whole life ahead.
Yeah. But then you also get this other unfortunate side, like just having to deal with the matters that come with being married and having a house and having...
What did you do? How did you deal with all that? And a business. You had a business together and properties and...
So it was just a lot of, I highly recommend to people, if you can do it, to get any professionals to help you that you can, because you can't go it alone.
You mean like therapy? Is that what you mean,
or attorneys or banks, whatever you need.
Sure.
And to make, find good people to help you with that stuff. Accept help.
Did Jack have a will?
No, he did not.
Does that make it more complicated?
Very much, yes. And now I tell everybody I know, I don't care how old you are or how young you are, if you don't have one.
Yeah. I've had a few friends pass away recently, and it's a not so subtle reminder that it's probably a good idea to get a will together.
Yes, and I now have one myself.
How did you do it? Was it a kit online or?
No. Actually, I have a really good attorney, and he actually gave me like this like a packet with information in it that I needed to provide. So I basically did all of the legwork, and then he just put it together, and I had to go in and notarize, notarize and all that. But I mean, it was not as bad as I was making it up to be in my head. I was dragging my feet to do it for a long time.
Again, death is a complicated emotion or a situation to face. So to make a will when you feel fine, it seems defeatist, I think, in a way.
But
it's
I think
a necessary evil.
Yeah, it is. And I think especially too with like, I have family members who have kids, and I'm like, you guys need to, when you have kids, the whole other ball of wax. We did not have children, which I don't know if is a blessing or a curse in this situation, but it definitely, made the process a little bit easier, I think, at least on a legal standpoint. But, yeah, definitely get a will and just do it. And that's all I can say. But I think the most difficult part of the whole thing was our home, because that was our home. That was where we lived for 10 years. And we had all these great memories there. And I didn't go back for a week. I had to go back there the day before the funeral because the pastor had asked me if I wanted to have anything up there in the church that represented Jack. And I did. The only way I was going to get it was going back to the house. And for some reason, I had people offer to do it for me. And I just said, no, this is something I have to do. Now, I did have a very, very dear friend come with me. But it took me 25 minutes to even go from the car to the door when I got there. It was really hard. That was probably the hardest moment of that whole week.
Yeah.
And I cried so hard when I opened that door. I haven't cried that hard in a really long time. I mean, it was because I walk in and his dish from the night before from dinner was on the counter and his shoes were by the door, and, you know.
All the things that make him the little inconsequentials that make somebody consequential.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was really hard, and I remember basically running up, because what I needed to get, of course, was in our bedroom. So that's a whole other, it's a very intimate space. And I had to go in his closet, and it was hard. It was really hard.
Did you end up selling the house?
I did. Yeah, because it was too big anyway, but I couldn't stay there. I couldn't, and it took me another few weeks, even after the funeral and everything, to even go back there and start deciding what I was going to do and get things packed. And
did you do that alone?
I didn't the first few times I went. I brought friends with me who were graciously, helping me out.
Sure.
But there were a couple times I wanted to go myself.
Yeah.
It was just something I needed to do.
Yeah.
So,
have you seen him? Does he come to you in dreams or in the doorways or,
You know what's funny? So he has not come to me in a dream or, I haven't seen him per se, but he's definitely made his presence known several times. One example was when we were going to, myself and his mother, we were going to pick out his plot at the cemetery. And it was a cemetery in an area where he grew up that I wasn't very familiar with. And one of the pet peeves of mine is in my car, I have GPS system, but I don't like her voice. I don't know what it is. So I had gone in and turned her voice off. And every time Jack drove with me somewhere in my car and we had to use the GPS, he'd be like, why isn't she talking? I'm like, well, because I don't like her voice. Well, how do you know where you're going? Well, I look at the screen, So I hadn't had it on for a really long time, and you have to literally go in and change the settings in order to make it go off. And I was going to the cemetery, and I was a little lost, and the very last turn before the cemetery, her voice came on and told me where to go.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I literally looked up to the sky and said, seriously, Jack, like, really? Like, that was great. Totally a jab.
Yeah.
Like, he knew I needed help, and he made it known.
Yeah. I love that.
So
I love stories like that. And I believe them with every ounce of my being. I really do.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, I had another one not too long after that. It was at the anniversary of the day we got engaged. And one of my friends called and said, do you want to do anything? Because it was one of the firsts, And I said, yeah, actually, you know what? I would like to have a glass of champagne tonight and celebrate that. So we went into this wine bar and, decided we were going to have champagne at, 8:00 or what. We picked a time and everything. And they had like a Sirius XM radio or something playing overhead. And right at the time that she and I clinked our glasses to take a sip, his very, very favorite song came on the...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Really?
And we both looked at each other because she knew that was his favorite song as well.
What's the song?
It's the Hawaiian singer version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yeah. Wow, so it's sort of a random tune, too.
I know. Yeah, it's very random.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just like crazy that it happened to come on right then. So
you said it was one of the first. Explain what you mean by that.
So the year of firsts, I call it. The first birthday, anniversary, anything like that that's within the first year. They can be good and they can be sad. I tried to make them happy because I think Jack would appreciate that. Try to do things that we would have done if he were here.
What'd you do for his birthday?
We had a pizza party, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because it was a weekday, and he was a huge, huge football fan, and there was a football game on TV, and I knew that if he were here, he would not have wanted to go out and celebrate. He would have wanted to be at home, order pizza, and watch that football game. And so that's what we did. My friends and I had a pizza party. A pizza football party.
I love it.
and it was really fun.
What did you do on the anniversary of his death?
I went to the ocean. I went to the beach. I took a friend with me. I relaxed for the weekend. Yeah, just because that was his favorite place to go. So
you're honoring him all the time.
Definitely.
Do you think it'll be difficult to date again someday?
You know, it's really interesting. I wasn't really sure about that. But I think that I think maybe I will at some point. You know, again, my heart is more open now than it was before.
Yeah.
But I'm also fine the way I am right now. I'm not, you know, it's not like I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But I feel like if the right situation occurred, then, you know, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know he would never want me to be alone. You know, and he'd probably be fine if I was, if I'm fine with it, but...
Maybe he'll help you meet somebody.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I met him through such a dear friend of mine, and I think there's kind of some kind of safety and security in that, you know, with the way some other dating options are right now. It can be really scary.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling if it ever happens again, I will meet someone through someone I know really well who knows the person and knows me, you know.
So I noticed you're not wearing your ring. So
Right.
was that one of those moments of self-awareness where...
Yeah, you know, part of it for me was it was harder for me to be in situations where people didn't know what happened with me and ask me about him, or even strangers, oh, you're married, but, you know, what does your husband do? And da-da-da. And, well, actually, no, you know. So rather than lying about it or trying to cover it up, I just felt the need to not have that reminder or that signal to people.
Yeah.
It was just easier for me.
Sure.
But I do have his ring and my ring on a necklace that I wear occasionally. So that for me is better because then I have, you know.
It's next to your heart.
Yeah, it's next to my heart. Yeah.
That's lovely.
So. But
I'm just all of it. It's so hard to comprehend. And I know so many people have had the exact same experience as you have. Maybe it was their wife, you know, husband and a wife, or a brother and a sister, or whatever. But it's just so traumatic to have someone. It's always traumatic to lose someone, granted. But, you know, if somebody is sick or something for a long time, and then you have time to prepare and understand it, wrap your head around it, unless maybe it's a child, and then I suppose it probably never feels like you're ready. But to have someone plucked like that, you know, where are you going forward? Do you go to therapy and stuff?
I do. And I haven't gone as often lately because I'm kind of going now more so when I feel like I really need it. But I actually started going to a therapist 3 weeks to the day after he passed away because I felt like for me, I really needed to get on that right away. As hard as it was, I really wanted to...
Is it like it is in the movies where people are in a circle? And
well, no. So this was an individual therapist,
okay.
And I actually, just to give the idea out here, I actually went on Psychology Today, which happens to have a search for a therapist.
They have a
link.
very good website for that.
Yeah, it's really good, and you can search by your location and even like your insurance or whatever it is you need to search by. And I actually went to 3 different therapists. To pick the one that I liked.
Good for you.
I feel like that's important.
I do too. So many people don't do it, and then they feel beholden to whomever the first person they walk through the door to. And
and honestly, both
it's like dating, right?
Yeah, it
therapists
is.
are like dating.
Well, and if you're going to share something so vulnerable, it's important that you're comfortable with them. And honestly, the 2 that I did not pick, I was honest with them, and I just said, you know what, I think you're great, but this is, just not for me. And they were completely fine with that. They are just as understanding about it.
Yeah.
So I really don't feel like you have to go to just one person and stay with them just because you feel bad or,
I agree.
But I did also go to a group therapy and it was recommended to me through one of the people in the criminal justice system that I was working with. Mm-hmm. And it was strictly for people who have suffered loss very tragically. So, for example, it was all people who either lost someone through murder mm-hmm. or suicide or tragic accidents, that kind of thing. Very sudden.
What was the big defining difference between the singular therapy and the group? Did you find that hearing other people's stories really helped you to get through your own?
Immensely. Yeah. Yes. And one of the biggest things was, even though our stories weren't the same, they were all still very tragic, and we could kind of understand the weight of what we were going through. And it, for me, I was like, wow, I felt like we were talking about earlier, like you feel like you're in this out-of-body experience. You feel like an alien. You walk around and you feel like people are looking at you even though they don't know what's going on, and you're totally out of place. And with a group of people like this who's gone through something so tragic, you kind of get a kinship right off the bat. We actually all of us became very close within just a couple of sessions, and we had 10 sessions we went through. Mm.
Do you still talk to anybody?
I do. Mm-hmm.
You do?
We still keep in touch, yeah.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. So, because we know all of our anniversary dates and things like that, so sometimes we'll get in touch with each other on those days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was so helpful. I mean, it was definitely hard. I remember the first session, I got home and I actually felt like I probably should have had someone pick me up and take me home.
It's like surgery or something. Yeah.
I was exhausted, like beyond anything I can explain. And even the next day, just completely mentally thrashed.
Yeah. But did you feel a big difference between day 1 and the 10th session?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I highly recommend. And I have discovered now, unfortunately, I had another friend who went through a situation where her husband committed suicide and in a different state. And she contacted me and said, you did this thing, do you think they have anything like that here? And I've learned through research that there are resources like that everywhere. So I obviously didn't know until it happened to me that was the case. But
yeah,
if you need the help, it is there. So
did you feel? I think pain is one of those things that people, when you're faced with it, they deal with it in so many different ways. Some people medicate. Some people sleep all day. Some people start running marathons.
Right.
Some people, take drugs. Whatever it is. What was your salve in the beginning, and what is it now when things like that come up? Or did you have one? Or
well, you know what? I moved in with a very dear friend of mine. I should say friends. A friend of mine and her boyfriend, and it was amazing because they have a really good family, and everybody was so welcoming, and they were also really good at figuring out the days that I just needed to be left alone in my room, and that it wasn't anything against them. I just needed my time.
Yeah.
But also whenever I wanted to get involved and be at dinners or go out or do whatever, that was fine too. So I think I just tried to keep myself, busy and doing things. But obviously I had a lot going on anyway because I was still working a full-time job.
Which I can't even.
And dealing with a criminal case and dealing with selling a house.
How did you do all that stuff? Maybe that was your salve then?
I think so.
So busy.
I think so. Because it was literally, my therapist and I equated it to basically working 3 full-time jobs at one time because that's how much was going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was probably that way for about a year.
Yeah.
That I really had.
Did that exhaust you?
Yeah.
So when you hit a wall, did you just say, screw job, screw everything?
Yeah. Yeah, take a day, sleep, or go walk, or...
But now you're on a hiatus from
working, yeah.
Yeah. How's that going?
Good. I'm more relaxed than I've been in a long time.
Yeah.
I think I really needed it, actually.
Yeah.
So...
I imagine.
Because I only took 2 weeks off when it first happened, which I know sounds crazy, but I I needed my job. I needed to go to something where every day I knew what I was doing and I knew what the outcome was going to be, and it wasn't going to be this crazy roller coaster of other things going on. So for me, that was therapeutic in itself to have that.
Yeah. Has Jack's killer reached out to you in any way? Has there been any kind of forgive me situation or anything like that?
No, not at all.
Do you think is he mentally ill? Is that, I'm sure it's a complicated drink.
Yeah, right? Drink again, everyone.
There's that word.
I mean, to me, obviously, he must be to do something that's crazy. But I don't know the specifics. I haven't asked a doctor or,
You're just not even going there.
Yeah, I don't really talk about him. I don't think about him. It's just not worth it for me.
Yeah.
What's done is done. I can't change that. So
yeah,
it doesn't make it healthy for me to think about those things.
That makes sense. So what now? Where do you go from here?
Well, I'm going to enjoy this sabbatical. I'm trying to do a little bit of traveling, and then, I have to decide what I'm going to do for my career. I think I'm ready to make a change there. I don't know what yet. And then just kind of need to figure out my living situation, because I haven't...
Because you sold your house.
Yeah, I sold my house, and I've been living with people since then. So back to living on my own again is going to be interesting, I think. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm ready for it, too. Like, it gets a point when you have that many people in a house and everything, and you're kind of ready to be by yourself.
Yeah, totally.
But I won't say I'm not a little nervous about it, because...
What are you nervous for? I mean, what are you about?
Just,
for?
It's going to be another thing that I've got to do on my own, and, have had to do a lot of that the last almost 2 years. So...
Do you think you're ready?
I do think so. I mean, and if not, I feel like maybe one roommate would be okay. Or maybe a dog or something. Yeah.
Say a dog.
A cat, something like that would be fine.
Yeah.
But I've repeatedly told people that I don't use the word someday anymore. Because we used to say someday we'll do this and someday we'll do that.
You and Jack did.
And it never happened. Mm-hmm. That just didn't happen.
Someday never arrives.
No, it never does. So I've kind of been, I will say, I think I've done not huge things, but I've been very spontaneous, more spontaneous than I ever have in my entire life. I've probably done more in the last 2 years than maybe 5 years before that, but just because I get the will to do something and I'm just doing it if I can.
Yeah.
Because why wait?
I'm sure Jack would smile on that.
Yeah, I think you would.
Yeah. Huh.
So, yeah.
So what you I know that you've been looking around at various different states to move to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a new fresh start.
Yeah, and it's a little bit, I mean, I feel like I want to do something new, but I'm also a little bit hesitant because I have young family members now, new family members that I just adore, and and I love being an aunt. So it's like if I pick something, it probably won't be that far, far enough that I'm away, but
maybe a state over, a couple states over,
where I have the ability to drive in a day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would be your advice to somebody like you who is maybe just now starting to go through the process of they've just lost the person and they're where you were?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I know for a fact that no matter who it is or what happened to them, I will never be able to put myself in their shoes.
Yeah,
I know that now.
What do you mean you know that now? Did you think that beforehand? Or
I think maybe in some form I did know that, but I don't think you really understand the depth of that until it happens to you and you realize that there's just no way that people could actually fully, completely understand exactly how you're dealing with what happens. Mm-hmm.
Every experience unique.
Yeah, exactly. And
that makes sense.
You might be able to understand the weight of it or the tragedy of it or whatever, but you just don't feel the same thing. There's no way to do that. But I would just say, take help if people offer it, and get yourself help if you feel like that might be a good thing. It's scary to do, but I know I can only speak for myself that it was immensely helpful, especially to do it as soon as possible.
What were you most scared of when you went into therapy? Was it yourself, or was it other people hearing your story? Or
it's just releasing a lot of really strong feelings.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah. And it's not that I didn't want to do it. I did, but it was just a little bit daunting to go in and all of a sudden here's this perfect stranger. Now the only comfort in that is that, you're in this room with them, and what's there stays in that room, and they're also not somebody so they're it's not like talking to your mom or your brother or your best friend about it. You almost feel like a little more willing to say more,
and they have the skills, the tools to help you,
to pull it out of you.
And to give you guidance. I think therapy is awesome.
I do too, and I think it's something to do all the time, not just when something like this happens. It really is.
Yeah, I read in a relationship book once that a lot of times couples, they wait until the relationship is breaking down to go seek out help. And in fact, the best thing that could be done is before you need help, as you're learning the tools and learning each other and the communication styles and all that, is to go.
Right.
So you have a foundation. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So someday, if I ever have somebody, I might bring that.
Heaven forbid. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't wish this on anybody, and hope that nobody ever has to,
of course,
deal with what I have dealt with. But I guess the blessing in it is that hopefully I can help people by what I'm saying. You seem
extraordinarily together, given that it's only been 2 years. This is a testament to your strength.
Yeah, I feel like I'm strong because I had to be. I didn't have a choice in my mind. I really didn't. So
was that part Jack saying to you, keep going, keep going?
Well, and he was always the one, I definitely wasn't always this strong of a person. And he was always the one that was trying to get me to be stronger in any situation. He was the one who would say, no, rip that Band-Aid off, do it, or whatever it may be. And so I think I just needed a couple extra helpings of that when this happened.
Yeah.
And I took it and ran with it. So,
yeah. Well.
But I also, part of it was my family. Like I said, I have a lot of young family members that adored Jack and really felt the loss. And I wanted to be strong for them and wanted them to know that he would never want them to go down. He wouldn't want them to be jaded by what happened. He wants that. I know he would want them all to become good people and just good positive people. So I talked to them about that after it happened, and he would really, really want you guys to keep doing as well as you are now, and even better.
Were they guided by that, do you feel? Or
I think so.
Good.
Yeah. I know one of my nieces was in particular, because I asked their mother, can I talk to them about this? Have you talked to them? How do we, that was the weirdest thing. Like, how do you talk to children about something like this?
In some ways, children are far more wise
than
we are.
Yes.
Honestly.
It's true.
Everything is very truthful for them. Oh, unless, of course, they took a cookie out of the cookie jar.
Right.
They have their way of lying. But you know what I mean by that. That emotions for them are very pure. So, in a way, I would think it would almost be easier to comprehend death with a child than it would be with an adult.
Yeah, because there were some people actually that, unfortunately, I didn't know how to get a hold of them, even with all of the resources online that we have today. And I will say I'm like a self-proclaimed detective when it comes to finding things. There were some people I just couldn't find, because most people have like a cell phone as their phone number now and they're not listed or whatnot. And
You mean friends or family of
yeah,
Jack? Or,
yeah, really close. And a couple of them I didn't get hold of until months later. And having to call them and talk to them and them not knowing was really hard.
Yeah, because you'd have to relive the emotion every time. Ugh, that's awful.
Yeah, but I felt so much better when I got a hold of them and was able to tell them, because it was lingering in my head. Like, every few weeks or so, I would try again to find them and, end up with a dead end. So
yeah, wow.
I think now everyone that I could possibly think of has been contacted, but there was a couple there that was really heartbreaking to have to talk to them, and not much longer after.
Yeah, man, tough stuff. Wow, I'm trying to think of something to ask that doesn't sound stupid, or I mean, again, from my seat looking at you, I think, wow, you're so together and so strong, and I'm sure it was a journey to get there, and it's not like it's a constant, I'm sure, either.
No,
you still probably have days, but man, I really appreciate you talking about this.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So I know you haven't really been very vocal outwardly of it.
No.
Were you nervous to talk about it?
Yeah, a little bit, because it's just, it's not the prettiest story in the world.
Yeah.
But
you found beauty in it in places, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a great honor to Jack, for sure.
Yeah, and he actually, because of organ donation, he actually helped someone.
He did?
Yeah, and that was a whole other thing. The very night that he passed away, I had to talk to the medical examiner's office, and they ask you all these questions about the person. Because they're going to do the organ donation, they need to know certain information.
Makes sense.
And it was an hour long on the phone. It was 100 questions I had to answer.
Were you able to answer
2
them
o'clock in the
Did
morning.
You know?
Most of them.
And here you are, again, out of body. Oh, gosh.
Yeah. It was crazy. But I got a letter about a month later from the portion of the organ donation company, or people that handle the eyes. And that his corneas had helped a 28-year-old woman to be able to see again.
Oh, that makes me want to cry. Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. It was amazing. And I remember actually calling his mother and telling her, and that was a really beautiful moment.
So Jack still gets to see the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's lovely.
And at first they asked me if I wanted to meet the person or even write them a letter or something like that. And it was just too soon for me.
Sure.
But there have been times now when I've thought maybe I might.
Do you think you will?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just really, to look them in the eyes, essentially, would be.
To look Jack in the eyes.
Yeah.
In every literal sense. Yeah. Wow.
But it's amazing that they were able to do that, and that someone was able to benefit so much from it. It made that.
It's incredible.
So amazing.
That's a legacy. That's wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
So
thank you.
Yeah. Thank
I love you.
Love you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Diane, Jack, here's to you.
Yay. Cheers.